Right now, as you're watching this video, the Social Security Administration is garnishing up to 50% of monthly benefits from over 1 million Americans. We're talking about $72 billion being collected nationwide. And here's the worst part. In most cases, it's not even the recipient's fault. These are SSA errors, system failures, and administrative mistakes. Yet everyday Americans are the ones paying the price. If you've noticed your Social Security check is smaller than expected, or if you've received a confusing letter from the SSA demanding repayment, you need to watch this entire video right now. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to identify if you're one of the affected recipients, what caused this nationwide crisis, and most importantly, the specific legal steps you can take to protect yourself. There's also a critical deadline coming up on September 30th that could affect how you receive your benefits, and I'll cover that too. The time is absolutely critical here because once the SSA starts garnishing your benefits, you could lose half of your monthly income almost overnight. Welcome to Financial Area, where we cut through the complexity and give you the financial information that actually matters. If you want to stay informed about issues that directly impact your wallet and your future, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you watch until the very end because I'm going to give you a complete action plan you can use immediately if you're facing an overpayment demand. Let's start by understanding what's actually happening right now across America. A Social Security overpayment occurs when the SSA sends you more money than you were entitled to receive. Now you might be thinking, well, if they overpaid me, wouldn't I know about it? And that's the problem. In most cases, recipients have absolutely no idea there was an error until months or even years later, when they receive a letter demanding repayment. The scale of this issue is staggering. According to an Inspector General's report, the Social Security Administration has made nearly $72 billion in improper payments, and the vast majority of these were overpayments. We're not talking about fraud here. We're not talking about people trying to cheat the system. These are administrative errors, computer glitches, and bureaucratic mistakes made by the SSA itself. Yet it's everyday American families who are being forced to pay back money they received in good faith and already spent on rent, groceries, medical bills, and basic survival. Let me share some real cases that illustrate just how devastating this can be. David Morgan from Georgia was helping his younger brother Dennis, who had gotten sick. David became his brother's representative payee, which means he was responsible for managing his brother's Social Security benefits. He did this for just 9 months before Dennis passed away. David notified the Social Security Administration immediately, thinking his responsibilities were complete. Then the letters started arriving. The SSA claimed they had overpaid his brother $20,000 and demanded that David, personally, pay back the entire amount. Here's where it gets even more confusing. The letter said the overpayments occurred since 2022, but David was only his brother's representative payee for 9 months. The math didn't add up, but that didn't matter to the SSA. The letter was clear. If David didn't pay by the deadline, his own Social Security benefits would be cut off entirely. Think about that for a moment. David was trying to help his sick brother. He followed all the rules. He notified the agency when his brother died. And now he's being threatened with losing his own income because of an error the SSA made. When asked how losing his benefits would impact him, he said he and his wife would be devastated because they still have bills to pay like everyone else. Then there's the case of Shemayim and her family. They fled a war-torn country in North Africa and came to Georgia about 6 years ago as refugees. They're now U.S. citizens, relying on Social Security to care for their 2 adult children who are mentally disabled. Out of nowhere, they received a notice demanding repayment of about $4,000 in overpayments. Shemayim's response perfectly captures the injustice of this situation. I didn't steal anything. It was the government who allowed us and gave us this. So it's like a punishment I'm getting for nothing. She's being punished for something she didn't do. Without those benefits, she says her family would be almost homeless. These aren't isolated incidents. This is happening to families across America right now, and it's about to get even worse because of recent policy changes. Here's what changed and why it matters to you. Back in 2022, the Biden administration introduced a rule that limited how much Social Security could recover when they discovered an overpayment. Under those rules, the SSA could only withhold 10% of your monthly check until the overpayment was fully recovered. Let me give you a concrete example of how this worked. If your typical monthly benefit is $2,000 and you accidentally received $3,000 one month due to an SSA error, they would withhold $200 per month for 5 months until they recovered that extra $1,000. It would hurt your budget, but it was manageable for most people. But that rule changed. The Trump administration pushed to revert back to the old policy where 100% of your check could be garnished because of overpayment. That's right, they wanted the ability to take your entire monthly benefit. There was massive public backlash against this proposal because it would literally leave people with zero income through no fault of their own. After that backlash, they settled on a compromise: 50% garnishment. You typically receive $2,000 per month in Social Security benefits. Due to an SSA computer error, you receive $3,000 one month. You have no idea there was a mistake. You spend that money on your normal expenses. Months later, you get a letter saying you owe $1,000. Once the SSA starts recovering that overpayment under the new rules, you'll only receive $1,000 per month until the debt is repaid. That's half your income gone, possibly for several months. For wealthy policymakers who created this rule, losing 50% of their income might be inconvenient. But for the millions of Americans who depend on Social Security as their primary or only source of income, this is catastrophic. When every dollar counts toward food, medication, utilities, and rent, losing half your monthly check can mean choosing between eating and keeping the lights on. And here's something that makes this even more unfair. The SSA can pursue deceased recipients' family members for these overpayments. The agency's own website explicitly states, if you die before you fully repay an overpayment, we may seek repayment from anyone who receives benefits based on your record. So even if your parent or sibling dies, you could be held financially responsible for the SSA's mistakes. Now, let's talk about how you know if you're one of the people being affected by this crisis. There are several warning signs you need to watch for, and if you see any of these, you need to take immediate action. First, unexpected letters from the Social Security Administration. If you receive any official correspondence from the SSA about overpayments, benefit adjustments, or repayment demands, this is your first red flag. Do not ignore these letters, even if you think they're a mistake. I'll explain why in just a moment. Second, smaller than expected benefit checks. If your Social Security deposit is suddenly less than what you normally receive, check your benefit statement immediately. The SSA might already be garnishing your payments without sending you adequate notice, or you might have missed the initial letter. Third, notices specifically mentioning overpayment recovery. These will usually include a dollar amount the SSA claims you owe and a deadline for response. Pay extremely close attention to that deadline because it's usually 30 days from the date on the notice. Fourth, any communication about representative payees or deceased beneficiaries. If you've ever helped manage someone else's benefits, or if you're receiving benefits based on someone else's work record who has since passed away, you're at higher risk for overpayment claims. If any of these warning signs apply to you, you need to understand your legal rights because you have more power than you might think. First and most important, you have the right to appeal any overpayment claim. The SSA doesn't get to just take your money without giving you a chance to fight back. If you believe the overpayment calculation is wrong, if you weren't actually overpaid, or if the time frame they're claiming doesn't match your records, you can formally challenge it. Second, you have the right to request a waiver of overpayment recovery. This is huge. Even if there was an overpayment, you can request that the SSA waive their right to collect it. You can argue that the overpayment wasn't your fault, that you relied on the payments in good faith, and that repaying it would cause severe financial hardship. And third, and this is critical, you have protection during the appeal process. If you file your appeal or waiver request within 30 days of receiving the overpayment notice, the SSA cannot garnish your benefits while your case is being reviewed. This protection alone makes it absolutely essential that you respond within that 30-day window. Fourth, you have the right to question the SSA's calculations and timeframes. Remember David Morgan's case? The SSA claimed overpayments going back to 2022, but David was only his brother's representative payee for 9 months. Those numbers didn't add up, and he had the right to challenge them. In fact, after media attention and intervention from a senator's office, the SSA admitted they made a mistake and dismissed David's case entirely. Speaking of SSA errors, let's talk about the most common mistakes the agency makes, because understanding these can help you build your defense if you're facing an overpayment claim. One of the most frequent errors involves system failures in tracking representative payee periods. The SSA's computer systems don't always accurately record when someone starts or stops being a representative payee. This leads to situations like David's, where they claim overpayments for periods when the person wasn't even managing the benefits. Another common mistake is incorrect overpayment timeframes being claimed. The SSA might say you were overpaid for several years when you only received the benefits for a few months. Cross-reference their claims against your own records, bank statements, and documentation. There are also frequent failures to account for proper notifications. Maybe you reported a change in circumstances, a death, or a change in income, but the SSA system didn't process it correctly.
If you can prove you followed the proper notification procedures, you have grounds for appeal. And here's something that encourages. Many cases that initially seemed ironclad have been successfully dismissed once recipients challenged them. Both David Morgan's case and Shamayim's case were eventually dismissed by the agency. This shows that fighting back actually works, but only if you take action. So what exactly should you do? Let me give you a complete action plan you can implement immediately. If you receive an overpayment notice, the absolute worst thing you can do is ignore it. I cannot stress this enough. Ignoring the letter guarantees that the SSA will automatically start garnishing 50% of your monthly benefits.
They won't send you another warning. They won't give you another chance. They'll just start taking half your income. So even if you think the notice is wrong, even if you're angry or confused, you must respond. The first thing you need to do is note the date on the letter and calculate your 30-day response deadline. Mark this date on your calendar, set reminders on your phone, do whatever you need to do to make sure you don't miss it. Everything depends on responding within those 30 days. Next, gather all your relevant documentation. This includes your payment records, showing what you actually received and when, any correspondence you've had with the SSA, dates when you notified them of changes, and if you were a representative payee, documentation of exactly when that relationship started and ended. The more evidence you have, the stronger your case will be. If you were a representative payee or beneficiary, document your timeline in detail. Write down exactly when you started managing someone else's benefits, what your responsibilities were, when those responsibilities ended, and how you notified the SSA. Be as specific as possible with dates and methods of communication. Now here's exactly how to file your appeal and request a waiver. You need to complete the Request for Waiver of Overpayment Recovery form. This is an official SSA form, and you can find it on their website or request it by calling your local Social Security office. When filling out the form, write a clear, detailed explanation of why the overpayment either didn't happen or wasn't your fault. Use specific facts and dates. For example, I was only the representative payee for my brother from March 2024 to November 2024, a period of 9 months. Your notice claims overpayments occurred from January 2022 to present, which is impossible as I had no involvement with these benefits before March 2024. If applicable, include a strong statement about financial hardship. Explain exactly how losing 50% of your monthly benefits would affect your ability to meet basic needs. Be specific. My monthly benefit of $1,800 covers my rent of $900, utilities of $200, medication costs of $300, and food expenses of approximately $400. Reducing my benefit to $900 per month would force me to choose between paying rent and buying food and medication. Attach copies of all your supporting evidence. Never send originals, always send copies. Include bank statements showing the payments you received, letters showing when you notified the SSA of changes, documentation of your representative payee period, and anything else that supports your case. Submit your appeal and waiver request via fax or mail to your nearest Social Security office within 30 days. You can find your local office address on the SSA website. If you're faxing, make sure you get a confirmation that the fax was successfully sent and received. If you're mailing, send it certified mail with return receipt requested so you have proof of delivery. Make copies of absolutely everything you submit. Keep a complete file with copies of the overpayment notice, your appeal and waiver forms, all supporting documents, proof of submission, and notes about any phone calls or in-person visits with dates, times, and names of people you spoke with. Now let me tell you about another critical change that's happening on September 30th. The Social Security Administration is phasing out paper checks and transitioning to digital payments. If you're still receiving a paper check in the mail, you need to take action before September 30th to avoid any interruption in your benefits. This means you need to set up either direct deposit to your bank account or sign up for the Direct Express debit card program if you don't have a bank account. You can set this up by calling the SSA, visiting your local office, or going online to the Social Security website. Don't wait until the last minute on this. If you're still getting paper checks and you don't make this transition, you could face delays in receiving your benefits. To ensure uninterrupted benefits, verify that your electronic payment method is properly set up. Make sure your bank account information is correct, including the routing number and account number. If you're getting the Direct Express card, make sure your mailing address is up to date so the card can be delivered to you. If you're dealing with a complex overpayment case, especially one involving large amounts of money or multiple years of claimed overpayments, you might need additional help beyond just filing the appeal yourself. Contact your senator's office. This is more powerful than you might think.
Both of your U.S. senators have constituent services staff whose job is to help resolve problems with federal agencies. In David Morgan's case, intervention from Senator Ossoff's office helped get his case reviewed and ultimately dismissed. You can find contact information for your senators on their official websites. Consider seeking legal counsel specializing in Social Security issues. Some attorneys offer free consultations, and if you have a strong case, they might take it on contingency, meaning they only get paid if you win. Organizations like legal aid societies sometimes provide free assistance to people dealing with Social Security problems. Use the SSA's official website resources for overpayment resolution. While the agency is the one causing the problem, their website does have information about your rights and the appeals process. The official web address is ssa.gov, and you can search for overpayment appeal to find the relevant forms and information.